really, what is self-advocacy? It's knowing what you want, knowing what you do well, and what you have difficulty doing. Self-advocacy is knowing your rights and your needs and expressing that information to the appropriate person. Okay? So that definition, I don't think it sounds like that daunting, but I hear you. In reality, it can really feel that way. But really, at its essence, that's really all that it is. Let's talk a bit about why is it so difficult. A few reasons. Feel self-serving or insincere. It's like that I'm selling myself, I'm like the walking, talking salesperson for my own life. That feels uncomfortable, it feels awkward. Another reason is that, like I mentioned before, the myth of meritocracy, as I call it, is that our work should speak for itself. And I wish with all my heart that the workplace was a classroom, because I promise you I'd be getting straight A's all the time. And unfortunately, like, that's just not the case. And that, for those of us who really believe that our work should speak for ourselves, self-advocacy could feel like unnecessary. So there are a number of us, and I know a number of you fairly well, who prefer to share credit. So when there's a success, there's a temptation, even if it's largely your success, there's a real strong temptation to share your wins with your teammates, with other people, and that is a good thing. It's it's not malicious intent, but really the danger is when you start to diminish your contribution to the win because you're placing higher value on the contribution that others put into it. I talked about this before. It's ambiguous about how to go about doing effective self-promotion. Like, how do we even know where to start? And then lastly, which is my favorite, is that it's emotionally draining. It can feel like another job, managing perception that no one has time for. We're going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. This is something I coach on a lot, especially, and it doesn't matter if you're young or if you're older. Like, imposter syndrome can kind of rule one's life for a long period of time if you don't learn how to combat it. But really, what is it? The definition is feeling inadequate despite evident success. It's the belief that I cannot recreate my success because maybe I was lucky or maybe people helped me along the way. This is something that I struggle with, like, just to put myself out there, struggle with to a great degree. I have a business coach who knows a lot about imposter syndrome that I pay just to hold me accountable for my imposter ridiculous behavior. She talks a lot. Her name's Cindy Spiegel, for those who are interested in learning more about imposter syndrome. She talks and writes a lot about it. And what she says is that imposter syndrome, really the emotion that stems from it, is fear. Fear around your strengths can lead to a core belief of I can't recreate my success, or I don't really own it. It's not really mine. And what ends up happening is that this is a cumulative effect. If you're not really able to connect back to your strengths or don't feel like you can recreate success, over time, it may not happen right away. This can lead to extreme self-doubt in what one does well. What I argue, just from a psychologist perspective, is that the cumulative effect of not knowing what you do well can lead to what I call a diminished sense of self. So playing small, feeling like you're not that great, that has ripple effects in your life, right? It doesn't just stay contained in the workplace. That may be something that carries out into your personal life. So if I don't feel like I'm that good at my job ever, maybe I feel like I'm not that good of a partner, or I'm not good of a sister, or I'm not good of a friend. That's what ends up happening. Grounding back in your competency. This is critical in general, but it's a way to combat imposter syndrome. This is a direct way to combat that type of internal event. And I have a few tips or a few actions. These are the questions that I actually pull out in my coaching, so I'm giving them to you. So a few questions is really, what is your unique value at work? Which sounds like a hard question, and sometimes that can be hard to nail, but really an easier way is why were you hired? First question. Then the second question is, what special skills or knowledge do you bring to the table? So there's the soft skills, the hard skills. The soft skills, those are actually the hard skills. They're very, very hard to do. But for all intents and purposes, we'll just term them those. So things such as communication, delegation, having a high EQ, being a team player. These things are huge. They're a direct reason why you are successful at your job. And then obviously the hard skills, so results-oriented, technical skills, negotiation skills if you're in sales, and that's relevant for you. And then I always ask people is, what are you good at outside of work? How are you a good friend, a good partner? What are you proud of? These are the things to ask. So as a psychologist, the thing that I argue is that it unwinds the internalized sense of self-doubt. It starts to like change the tape. Why? Because the kind of the negative self-talk that you've been telling yourself, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not that great at my job, or I could do better at this, like that is, that's negative self-talk. And enough of that can really be dangerous. So if you ground back in your competency, you remind yourself what you do well, you start to unwind that tape. It's the tape that gives negative things or plain negative words to you. I call it the you suck radio. So change the dial from the you suck radio to what I call the you rock radio. So corny. But really, it is a dial switch in your brain that you have to shift. The next thing is that more tactically, it makes clear your value and establishes your importance. If you are not able to articulate why you are good at what you do or what you're even good at to your boss, to your colleagues, like you're selling yourself short. When you're able to vocalize what you do well, people see you more as an expert, more credible. They're going to come to you because they know what you are known for, what your level of expertise is. So a tool to add in your toolkit is called the elevator technique. So instead of me talking about it, because I need to take a water break, I'm going to have Bianca, who is a person that I've taught the elevator technique to share with you all what it is and what's the impact.
So one of the challenges I wanted to work through with Jena was building my professional confidence. And when you think about the barriers to having confidence, it's sometimes hard to articulate like what that's stemming from, or where throughout your day, or even throughout like a couple of hours of your day, you're experiencing kind of lows or highs, or what's inciting those lows or highs. So I use the elevator technique to check in with myself. And so what it means is throughout the day, starting off, I set a couple of alarms, and it would read, check in with yourself. What level are you on? Highest level being like 10 or whatever, however high your elevator wants to go, and then lowest being 0 or 1 with the ground floor. And I'd have my alarm go off and it'd say, what level are you on, Bianca? And I'd be able to check in and say, well, if I'm at a level, if I feel like I'm at a level 3, what just happened for me to feel like I'm at a level 3? When I am at a level 9 or a level 10 or even an 11, like what just happened? Did I give a kick-ass presentation? Do I feel really good about it? What did I do to prepare for that I hadn't done in the past that incited great results, seemingly great results? And how do I start to recreate that behavior?
So this is just a way to check yourself. It's super easy, super tactical. Definitely recommend for people to give it a shot. The second thing I want to talk about, which we don't really talk about at work, is standing up for yourself. Something that I feel like no one talks about at work ever. But really, what is standing up for yourself? This is a quote that I love and I hate. And I think that some of you may have a love-hate relationship with this too, is that our behavior teaches people how to treat us. You may be a bit annoyed at that quote, and I actually hope you are. Why is that an annoying quote? Really, what that means is that there's a certain level of accountability or onus on us when we feel people are treating us poorly, that we have to stand up for ourselves. And yes, there are power dynamics in the workplace that are different than outside, but internalizing it and just staying silent or crying in the mailroom, which is, I definitely did it in my career, is just not a good thing. To sum this up, what I'm gonna ask you to just think about is, how often do you feel you stick up for yourself? And if you're not happy with the answer, which some of us may not be, we may need to make an active effort to change that. The third thing I want to talk about, which is the last one, is increasing visibility. So they say hard work is its own reward, but without visibility, there's a good chance it's the only reward you're going to get. Again, I hate this. I wish the workplace were a classroom. It'd be awesome, but it's not. And if you Google like self-advocacy 101, one of the top things that will come up with in like any Google search is what I call speaking up in meetings. One of the common things that I get told in coaching as to the reason why people don't speak up in meetings is that they're afraid that they're going to trip up on their words, that they may not, they have good ideas, they know what they want to say, but their ability to say it, they feel is the message isn't going to be clear, they're going to stumble, they may get somatic symptoms where they get hot and blush. So then what ends up happening is they stay silent. So really what this actually is, and it's a term used in psychology, it's not mainstream, is verbal fluency. It's all that this is. It's articulation. So it's ability to form and express words compatible with required criteria. What does that mean? It means being able to say the right words at the right time. And it is tied to intelligence. That is true. However, the thing about it, the good thing about it, is that it's verbal fluency is part of like the frontal lobes, which is a very elastic part of the brain. So what do I mean by that? Is that we can get better at this. It can change. So while it's tied to intelligence, we can move the needle. But the only way to move the needle on verbal fluency, unfortunately, is practice. That's it. At the end of the day, though, what I want you to take away is that verbal fluency can be moved. You can perceive yourself not so good, and then you can get a lot better at it. Other ones to just really quickly mention is making sure you highlight successes to your manager instead of only providing status updates. This is something that I see a lot of people do and get trapped in, is that if you're only providing status updates, you're just like another employee, right? It's like, oh, I completed this task. Okay, cool. Being able to highlight your wins and articulate them well, and especially being able to articulate your team wins if you are a manager, like that's part of your job. If you are a leader, it's your job to elevate team wins to the people above you. It's a reflection on their success, and it's also a reflection on your success. And then lastly is crystallizing a personal brand. What does that mean? People have classic phrases or ways of describing you. That's a personal brand. But what you really want to make sure is that your personal brand, the way people are talking about you, is how you want them to talk about you.